Hello. Welcome to today's Action Impact Sustainability Forum, sponsored by Investor Strategies and 4XI Global Consulting, where I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer in Residence. My name is Christy Cook, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. Today's topic is the future of university food service and sustainability, navigating challenges and embracing innovation. At 4XI, we tackle sustainability challenges with practical, results-driven approach through Sustainability Simplified. That's why I created the Action Impact Sustainability Forum. It's a space where food service leaders can turn sustainability from an overwhelming challenge into strategic advantage. With over 25 years in food service, I've seen firsthand the complexities of implementing sustainable practices. And too often, organizations take a reactive approach. They prioritize other business needs or see sustainability as just another check the box. In reality, I believe that sustainability isn't just an obligation, it's an opportunity. I think it strengthens your business, it supports your people, and it drives lasting impact. The Action Impact Sustainability Forum is going to help you move from reactive measures to proactive solutions. By the end of this discussion, I'm confident that every one of you will have at least one idea to contemplate or an action or two to implement at your own location. So today, we're going to dive right in. We've got an incredible panel, and we'll explore how these two industry leaders are approaching sustainability within their dining programs. So let's start this conversation. First off, we're going to start with Vicki Dunn, who's the Assistant Vice President of Dining at Columbia University. And we were catching up before this. It's been at least 18 years since we've seen each other. At least 18 years. That's just crazy how time passes. So much to catch up on. But Vicki, for the audience here today, will you share a little bit more about yourself and how your career brought you to Columbia Dining?
Sure. I've been in college and university food service for too many years that I want to say, because then you can tell how old I am. I've always loved college and university dining because it keeps me young. I love dealing with my students. I've been at Columbia for 18 years. The nice part about that are my stockholders are people who sit with me every single day and eat. Columbia Dining has 9 all-you-care-to-eat locations or meal plan locations. We also do catering, vending, food trucks, anything you can think of. We have 7,500 students on our meal plan, of which 1,450 are mandatory first year. The rest are all voluntary. Let me see what else I can tell you. Oh, I only have 1,200 seats, and yet the business just seems to grow over and over again. We have been working on sustainability for all of the 18 years I have been here, from going from tradeless in 2007 to in 2023, signing the New York City Plant Powered Challenge and being the first signatory to sign that in New York City. We're very excited about sustainability and what we can create. And I think one of the myths that I always hear is that it will cost you more. And I can tell you that my food cost has decreased 5% year over year.
Okay, I almost think you need to say that one more time. Your food cost has done what year over year?
Decreased.
No.
Year over year.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm glad to hear that. Well, that's amazing. Between the amount of seats, the meals per day, and the cost, that's great. Smitha, I am interested in hearing from you too. We met at a Menus of Change University Research Collaborative when you were at Princeton. I believe it was hosted at Princeton. And it's been years, but what I recall from that has stood with me and stayed with me from the time I met you there was your passion for the dining program. I still remember that to this day. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to Harvard University Dining Program.
Great. Thank you for having me, Christy. I'm glad to be here with you, Vicki, on the same panel, sharing the stage, friends and colleagues. I'm Smitha Hanif. I serve as the Managing Director for Harvard University Dining Services. I started my career in hospitality, went to a school going in hotel management, catering technology, and applied nutrition. And with all the 3 arms were equally important. I started in food and beverage service and then moved to food and beverage production back in India. And over the years, I have been in hospitality industry but hospitality industry at the intersection of various sectors. So within technology, within finance, within retail, and now in higher education. So my journey in the US has made me travel from Boston to Birmingham, Alabama, to Northern California, to Princeton, back to Boston. And my husband always says it's like living in 5 different countries. But the depth of knowledge about the people and culture of this country has made me stronger, and that's something that I cherish most. I'm an alum both of the Harvard Business School and University of Southern California. So I lean into that from time to time in terms of how do I educate and keep myself informed and share what I learn. Within higher education, I've been in higher education, as you mentioned, prior to this at Princeton and now at Harvard for a little over 10 years. And during that time, what I have found unique about higher education for members, for staff such as us, is we get to sit at the intersection of academics and administration. And we get to bridge the two. And when you think about sustainability, some of the leading edge, still untold work in the field of sustainability and environmental sciences happens on campuses such as Vicky's and ours. So we get to be the recipient at the highest level of knowledge that is being generated in different fields. Clearly, climate and sustainability is one of them. And we get to translate that. And that's a big part of how I approach sustainability. A little bit about our vision and our program here. Harvard University Dining Services is one of the oldest collegiate dining program in the country. Prior to the Ritz-Carltons, prior to the Four Seasons, and we will be celebrating our 400th birthday anniversary in 2036. So since 1636, when we had 9 students and we were caring for 9 students in living learning ecosystem, to now 5 million meals and counting, we are on a journey and we are still evolving, right? There is so much for us to learn and continue to grow. Our program has 3 business groups. The first one is the residential dining. We have close to 7,000 students who are here in our living learning ecosystem. The first year, all the students live in the yard and go to Annenberg, which is like the common dining place for them to commune. The second, third, and fourth year, we have 12 houses where the students reside. Again, each house is a living learning ecosystem in itself with a dining hall. Our residential program has 14 dining halls, and we do about 2.5 to 2.8 million meals within that program in a year. Retail, which is our professional schools, campus cafes, and pub. We are at 7 of the 12 professional schools providing comprehensive hospitality programs. You can think about it as your everyday cafe experience, everyday coffee experience, to special events that happen, right? It could be your daily drop-off of coffee and sandwiches all the way to serving heads of states. This past weekend, we were hosting the Harvard India Conference, and there were students and guests from all across the world. But that's just a sampling. So any given day between the Kennedy School for the Government, the Law School, the Graduate School of Design, there's multiple programs that are going on. And our final business segment is events and catering. So think of it as the tents, the chairs, the campus events that are put together for our students during graduation. I have a team that manages that, and catering. Again, everything from your regular drop-off to campus-wide, which is large. So if you think about an event space, a convention, a banquet hall, campuses tend to be a culmination of all of them and then some more, right? And so that's a little bit about our program, serving 5 million meals. I will say, when we think about sustainability, we think about all aspects of sustainability, meaning how we care for our team and people, right? I think that's quintessential and is central to the DNA of our campus in so far as team and people and investments that we make in them, in their learning and benefits and the day-to-day quotidian support for them. We think about it in the space making and placemaking, facilities, landscaping, the care of plants, care of environment. And to me, that too is sustainability. That's how I grew up, right? Sustainability is not the other, it's the DNA. It's right rooted in how you approach every activity or task, small or large, strategic or tactical. And then food is part of that too, right? Even before this became a fashion statement, I think all of our universities, right, as Vicky was sharing, it is part of who we are and how we think about it. So however the program is, it's just been integral to our vision, mission, and operational strategy.
There were the three things I heard you, if I were maybe bucketing them, about Harvard's approach to sustainability with investments in learning and benefits, space making and place making. I think I liked that. I liked how you said that. And then thinking about food as all these components and the 5 million meals opportunities you have to drive culture and influence. That's powerful. Vicky, what's the approach of Columbia Dining with thinking about sustainability in food service? What's that approach for Columbia?
I think it's ever changing.
Mhm.
I want to say that we've always thought about it from paper to cleaning supplies. We're green restaurant certified, all of those things. But I think what really brought it to a head was about 2.5 years ago, and it was a capstone project. So students came to us with a project, and I've done many capstones in my years here at Columbia, but it was a great group of students who came and said, we need to get rid of beef on campus. You all need to really look at this. They brought great ideas. They did surveys. They had a very practical approach to the way of doing things. They brought measurement tools, working with both the Cool Foods calculator and Greener by Default to put these programs together. But their buy-in to this and their kind of communication with other students on campus, because we've all gone through the cycles of Green Monday or Meatless Monday, and students are like, where's the beef kind of thing, where you've got to look at it and balance those programs, them coming along with working with our chefs and understanding our purchasing and understanding the fact that at Columbia, we don't have a loading dock because we're in the city of New York. All of those pieces and parts and how we work with vendors. There is no garden on our campus. Local to us is 250 miles away because we're on the island of Manhattan. Looking at all of that together, that capstone project proved to be the most fruitful thing we've ever done here at Columbia. They understood that you can't just take things away. We have to figure out, working with our culinary team, you can serve a quesadilla, and one of our most popular quesadilla is a roasted butternut squash portobello mushroom quesadilla that you can get with either vegan cheese or traditional cheese. And they understood having those choices and letting people make their decisions and then measuring those decisions is really how we educate our students into their choices and what they're going to do. We have one location here on campus. It's a 24/7 location, and it is the old pub on campus. So burgers are the specialty, but we've also been doing Beyond Meat since its inception 13 years ago. So in understanding and giving those choices, when you walk up to a line and having the students say, you know what, you can have a burger or a Beyond Meat burger, or giving them the choices, and you can have a steak quesadilla, or you can have a chicken quesadilla, or you can have this really nice roasted butternut squash and portobello quesadilla. The other thing is not marking it vegan. We've learned that too through our students. Vegan has a certain connotation where if you say plant-based or plant-powered, they're far more receptive to eating that item than they were if it was vegan. And I'm not really sure why, but in their vernacular, in their heads, plant-powered is the right thing to do. And that's where they really go for that. We have fish and everything else. So in the first year from that capstone, we've dropped our beef purchases 8%. So
Wow.
now we have to attack the other ruminant meats because we do lamb and we do goat here because we're a very diverse culture here at Columbia. So looking at all of those items also. And we've done it without anybody knowing. It's not been blatant. It's not been in your face. And that's the other way, is just to prepare really great, tasty dishes that it doesn't matter if you eat vegan, vegetarian, or not. It's just a really great item for them to have every single day. I think on a college and university campus, without the student buy-in, it's not going to work.
That's a great segue to talking about student engagement. For the folks that are listening, I'm going to warn you that we're going to do a poll. We're going to do 3 of those in this, and I have your first question for you here that I will set up while we move on to some discussion. But we want to hear a little bit about your program. So how would you describe your university's approach to sustainability and food service? While you're answering that, we are going to come back to talking about the students. And I saw a statistic in a May 2024, actually Sodexo study that said 69% of US students expressed a desire to consume more sustainably on campus, yet they don't feel their institutions are meeting those expectations. Vicki, you just shared a lot about students, helping them understand, give them really opening the back door behind the operations and understanding what's going on. And you've said that's how that's evolved. What was the biggest just aha moment in some ways? Maybe even I know we're talking about students, but how did that impact your culinarians, maybe your team for aha moments?
It's a couple of things. We have an executive chef on campus. His name is Chef Mike DiMartino. Mike and I have known each other 25 years. Mike has his own bobblehead on campus. He has stickers. He's a celebrity. People will stop him to take pictures with him. And Mike will sit down with students and say, listen, I'm Italian. Vegan and vegetarianism, we probably do it, but it's just not part of my culture. Will you sit down and go through recipes with me? Tell me what you like to eat and use those recipes. Also, through the whole capstone and bringing the students in, we were to have an hour discussion to go through purchasing and how we buy. That turned into a 3-hour discussion that just was very engaging between myself and the students and the chefs. And it was more of this idea brainstorming session, bringing them in and leading the way. The professor of the group now is, Vicki, can we do 3 more capstones? Because we have to go all electric very soon by Plan 2030. So will you work on that with us? That's going to be a little tougher for our chefs, taking them from gas to electric, but we'll figure out a way. I think the biggest realization for myself as well as my staff, and again, been doing this a long time, I hope I'm not offending, it's the vegans. Oh, they're coming after us. We have a group of students, the Vegan Society, and they do on College Walk, which is our main thoroughfare at Columbia. Would you like to buy dog meat? And it's this whole creating awareness of you wouldn't eat your dog, why are you eating a cow, everything else. And actually, they're now a partner with us. But it's not that kind of in your face, radical kind of discussion. It is more like, we can partner with this, we can all coexist. We have a vegan station, which makes them very happy. But for our other students who want to just eat plant focused, you can go to any one of our stations and get an option that is a traditional option or a vegan option or a plant powered option. So having those kind of discussions with all of the students, because it's their program, it's not my program. They create their own program. And every couple of years, the program changes as our students change. So I think it's really important not to be kind of wary of the people that are coming in and thinking they're going to want stop killing the chickens on 114th Street. And it's more that you have to sit down and listen and compromise. They have to compromise, you have to compromise.
That's great advice. Smitha, what's happening on campus with your program, with the expectations of your dining program and the evolution of that? How's that been at Harvard?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of our approach is follow the voices. right? Follow the students because they are savvy, traveled, informed, right? Gen Alpha, the current generation, is on top of these aspects that connect to their lives, right? And that connect to the work that we do in their service. So follow the voice is something that I often share with my team. Our approach has been our strategic framework has four sensitivities: health sensitivity, cultural sensitivity, religious sensitivity, and environmental sensitivity. And to me, a combination of all these four is sustainability, because it's no good if I'm just meeting an environmental goal, but in trying to achieve that, if I'm not able to care for or provide nutritionally dense menus that meet a student from a certain cultural background who's looking for a certain menu, we would not have done right by that. So we're always looking, most often, right, in doing many surveys, I have found that students engage with their diet and menus most often through one of these lenses. It could be more, it could be all. And the resultant is that framework is used across all our 30 locations by our culinary council, which is led by our director of culinary, Martin Breslin, who is a superstar in his own right? Just as absolutely there. And it's being informed about the best of research, where is it happening, and how do we think about translating this on our campus in this time to meet this moment. We follow Eat Lancet from a scientific research standpoint, and then we are always in touch with our faculty from Harvard School of Public Health, particularly the Department of Nutrition. Dr. Walter and I serve on an initiative that I have formed, Harvard Food Systems Initiative, and this is primarily to engage with students and faculty across campus. So for us, since we have it part of our strategic framework, the chefs and the program managers have that as a tool. And when they're preparing their menus or menu matrix, they're always comparing and contrasting. Do I have a good balance? And is it meeting, right, the majority of the middle of the bell curve? And then, of course, we have accommodations where in some cases, our team is preparing one-on-one, right? Meals one-on-one, and that's the level of care we want to be sure that we are here to provide as is needed. Then on the other end, in terms of engagement with students, I would say we focus both on quantitative and qualitative inputs. Your quantitative inputs would be surveys, and we have text and tells, and we have multiple mechanisms through which we have inputs. We are hearing from students directly and are engaging across a broad spectrum of our team members to respond to them. The qualitative side is the one-on-one conversations, right? I was at Annenberg yesterday, met with a few students and had a beautiful portobello saltado instead of a lomo saltado with some yuca fries and Latin-inspired menu. You spoke about vegan, vegetarian. I think our focus has now become more the four sensitivities and approaching our menus through that. We do have a good beef entree every once in a while. We do have beautiful selection of plant forward, right? We celebrate the seafood and sea right out of, because we're right by the sea. But these are some of the approaches in terms of how we are engaging with students, how our program is evolving. Our student demographics is probably one of the most diverse. We grow at a pace of like 13 to 14% right? 25% of our undergraduate student body is new every year. It's dynamic, it's diverse, and constantly we're thinking about what's the next part. And on the undergraduate, it's 25% that the students who are new, who are entering in the first year. About 14% students are international. And then on the graduate side, about 40% of our students are international, all right? So the combination of undergrad and grad, just if we followed them and heard enough in multiple formats, both through all channels of communications, there's a depth of input that we receive. The complexity is how then do we translate it into a matrix for a program and a service to meet the moment?
It's nice that you have the matrix. That can be like the source of truth, if you will, that can always come back to. And like you said, with student body changing so much, have to have that constant engagement, it sounds. I just closed the poll, and most campuses, the number one are making progress, but still figuring things out. And then we were tied with leading the way and a work in progress. Some are just getting started, some it's not a focus. Again, I hope that you learned something today. And that I'm not sure if I did share the results. Okay, there you go. Now I'm sharing the results so you can actually see them yourself. So that's great. It's some good information to know. I think that anyone on here, no matter where you're at in your journey, can learn something today. So that's amazing. I will start another poll in just a moment because we're going to talk about the challenges in sustainable food service. And so we'll jump into that when I start the next poll. But I want to go back to you for a second, Vicki. Tell us what challenges that you are facing, because a lot of times it is financial, but that's not what you're saying at all. So what are you encountering?
I think it's for us in the city of New York, not having a robust composting program is probably our biggest challenge. We've been working with the Department of Sanitation for the past 10 years. We were their test for a while, but it was a test where if it was Martin Luther King Day, it wasn't on. If it was winter break like we're in right now, it wasn't collected. So hiring that outside source to compost, but understanding that the industry isn't really ready to compost, at least not where I am in the city. So that's been the biggest challenge. And even though for those units that do have paper goods, all of our paper goods are compostable. Every single piece of our paper goods are compostable. So it's explaining that to the students and having students that come from other places where composting is just something that's done all the time, not understanding that the infrastructure isn't here to do that. I would say something that was a challenge that is no longer a challenge. We do not have a bake shop on campus. We work with bakery jobbers. Again, the 5 boroughs, bread is never a problem in this area of the world, but coming up with vegan desserts. And one of our first cooks said, you know what? I can do this. Give me some time, 30% of my day, and I'll make vegan desserts. And we sat there and looked at him and said, Amina, you sure? And he's, I've got it. The man does miracles. He makes a chocolate marshmallow vegan cake that's out of this world, completely out of this world. And again, when we say it is plant forward, because vegan stuck in our heads, but students love it. We make a plant forward vegan apple strudel, again, out of this world. And what happened was we do a battle of the dining halls every year. So we take 5 dining halls, we all go in an auditorium and we compete against each other. Robert Irvine comes in as our celebrity judge, along with our students. And last year we didn't tell them that we were only doing plant forward. We served absolutely not one stitch of meat, dairy, anything, eggs, nothing. Some of the students were upset in the beginning, and then when they tasted the food, they couldn't believe it. And we had testimonies from Robert Irvine going, I'm a carnivore. I don't eat like this. And this food's fantastic. So getting those kind of affirmations, and we had them do desserts last year, and that was the birthplace of the apple strudel and the chocolate marshmallow cake. So using that kind of a platform, which is a fun atmosphere, and students get t-shirts and they get all excited and they win prizes. And when I say prizes is they can come and design a menu with Chef Mike for a day in one of the dining halls, whatever they want.
Wow.
So there's no lobster. So those are the kind of things we do to engage with students and really introduce and show what we're doing. So now it's, wow, that apple strudel is really good. Oh, do you know there's no butter in it? Who cares? It tastes great. So I think it's getting out there, which was a challenge. The bakery is not a challenge anymore. But for us, definitely the composting is a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. I can understand that very much. Smitha, from your point of view, what are the challenges at Harvard that you're seeing? Do they vary much from what Columbia is seeing?
I would add to what Vicky has shared, right? The storytelling and connecting. There is so much that we do, there is so much that has become part of our practice, right? From how we make a water hose selection that reduces water consumption. If you think closely about it, water and sustainability couldn't get any more complex than that. But we think at the most lowest common denominator, right? How can we be more efficient? The dish machines that we select, are they effective both for energy and water consumption? The way we cook, are there pastas that we don't have to boil in gallons and then drain the gallons of water, right? Or are there newer techniques to cook? Are there innovative pastas that are coming out there? I give pasta as an example, but you get the picture, right? Sometimes what's right in front of us, there is also a solution that we could potentially be thinking about. And we have the advantage of moving markets and shaping markets. If we went with, let us say this example to a pasta company, there is more receptivity I have experienced during my time, both in my previous role and here, when we bring these, not challenges, this is the problem statement. Can you partner with me to solutioning? We may fail at it, that's okay, but we've done it together. You have certain wisdom, I have certain wisdom. You can give me a certain product, I can test it before scaling. So there's a lot of experimentation that we do before test, pilot, experiment, iterate in all aspects of what we do: facilities, equipment, training our team. So to me, it's about communicating and telling our stories to a dynamic, diverse audience and a dynamic, diverse internal audience, which is our own team, right? A lot of times we're thinking about sustainability and it's an external message, but we forget that our team has to be inspired, motivated, and they could be coming from cultures where I came from such a culture, right? My mom would like, don't leave a grain of food on the plate, right? But we have several team members who imbue those as part of their lifestyle. Why not create that voice and also inspire them along the way? So it's in all directions, communicating, telling our story, brainstorming with them, and gleaning in best practices where they are. And with our partners, taking our problem statements and inviting them to co-problem solve with us.
I love that. Speaking of the challenges, a NACUF source said that university food service operations have increased pressures for sustainable practices. Obviously, they got to balance operational efficiency, student satisfaction. According to this survey, 75% of campus dining facilities cited budget restraints as their primary barrier. And with our poll, that was the #1 answer as well. So maybe we need to dig into this a little bit. Vicky, how are you saving money and still doing sustainability? How is that happening? And Smith, I'll have the same question for you. If you could share a couple of examples that maybe others could take back to their operations.
I think where people make the mistake is thinking that if you have a chicken breast, you then have to have a plant-based chicken breast. Those items are very expensive. But if you talk to people who eat plant-powered, plant-based, vegan, they will tell you, if I wanted to eat chicken, I never would have gone down this road, whether it is for health reasons, allergens, or just that's the culture or the way they've been brought up. So I think where the mistakes are made is using these, excuse the expression, fake meats as a substitute rather than using legumes and grains and experimenting with those legumes and grains and creating a dish with red lentils and black rice and garbanzo beans. One of our biggest sellers here is a chickpea tagine. It's chickpeas, it is some dates, it is some apricots, and we can't keep it in. To go along with that, with the sustainability part, some of our students were like, the chickpeas are mushy. We worked with one of our vendors, found a woman-owned business down in Texas who actually doesn't have the beans coming soaked in water in a can. They're actually in a vacuum-packed bag. You get this wonderful crunch when you have it. So here we go. We've got that black beans and kidney beans that we're now using, and you have to make it look attractive. It's not, you took beans out of a can, you didn't even drain them or clean them and throw them out and heat them up and think people are, oh, here you go, they're going to love it. I'll put some couscous on the side. You can't do that. You have to put the same love and care in the dishes that you did in your traditional dishes. So I think it's really important to understand, because those kind of fake meats can cost a lot of money, and people go down that road because I think maybe they think it's easier or they're going to please people that way, but you're also serving a lot of soy, and not everybody wants a lot of soy. So understanding and looking at things, we still go back to, we have a Moosewood cookbook. Moosewood was Alice Waters in the beginning of better eating and not eating meat, vegan vegetarianism. And those recipes in those books stand today as well as they did 30 years ago. So I think that's where you can reduce food cost by going down that road and not seeing that everything has to be a meat that isn't a meat.
That's fair. Smitha, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, several, right? I think it's so important to keep your eye on, right, on point here. It begins with our sourcing team, who is constantly engaged with our suppliers, with our farmers, trying to get to understand what are the crops that would be out there, how can we leverage from good quality ingredients as they're being harvested in season. Even though we're in New England, we have great farmers, especially in central Massachusetts, right? And I think the farmers here are some of the most well-educated and well-informed farmers that I have met. And believe me, in all the states I have lived, I've met with farmers. And they will say the soil is in this way, so I have these type of beets, or right, I have Hubbard squash that I can produce for you. So we are always thinking about how might we maximize that as best as we are able. And in that maximization, our hope is also that we are able to gain efficiencies in cost and pricing. The second step is, all right, we've menued and we have the advantage of menuing in advance and taking a look at how the market is moving. Let us say a given produce that is in a given recipe shifts significantly, right? We then think about what is a high quality alternate that can still be, it can be prepared authentically, but we can still meet that moment. So that's right. These are very tactical steps, but the team is on top of it. I know Martin and the culinary team they meet every Thursday and they're looking at these movements. The next part is engaging with our staff. Cultures around the world have really diverse, healthy diets from sustainable food systems that are local to that part of the world. So if we are able to source those ingredients and yet build a diverse menu for our campus, how beautiful is that? We do a lot of that, glean in recipes from our team and from our students. So we have a student at Yabi who is also a food literacy program fellow. She shared some Ghanaian recipes with us, and it was a Ghanaian jollof rice recipe. It's a beautiful rice, and like every country within the African continent has its own jollof rice recipe, but the focus was on her culture, her story, her recipe, family recipe that she got to share with our team. And then we were able to test it, taste it, iterate it, and then scale it, right? It may not be as perfect as her mom prepared, but it's our students' recipe. We did it with pride and it's our journey, right? So there's just magic in that. And we got to feature that last week or the week before, the jollof rice. And the other part is training our team. We have significant amount of training opportunities from knife skills all the way to diverse cuisine skills that we're trying to bring to our staff. Keep in mind that when we say plan forward, preparing those with good technique requires a new skill set. Just as a beef, a chicken, a poultry, each category requires its own. And some of the best chefs will tell you that plant-based handling vegetables is a labor of love. So there's a lot that goes in, but it's not linear. It's a complex, multidimensional process and equation that we're trying to meet every day.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. For the audience, just so you know, participants, we are about to move into the Q&A in just a moment. So you got just a few more minutes to put in some questions, and then we're going to answer those. I'm going to launch one last poll. And what would be most helpful in advancing sustainability in university food service? So as you're answering that, we're going to talk about the future of food service and talk about innovation. So I'll circle back to you, Vicki, and Smitha too on the same thing. Now, we've already talked about when we were starting before everyone joined, we were talking about the fact that none of us have a crystal ball. Yet I'm going to ask you a crystal ball question, and it is based on your long experience in this work. But there's been so much evolution in both your programs and all in food service of where you've been. But what do you think is the future of university food service and sustainability in the next 5 to 10 years, and why?
I think it's just going to get more prevalent as people find out things like if you're a cancer patient, soy is not so good for you, right? Different kind of chemicals and everything else. Our students want to eat clean. They don't want pre-prepared foods or anything else like that. So I think what's going to happen is either you're going to go willingly or somebody's going to drag you kicking and screaming, but it's what you have to do. If you're not doing compostable items, whether or not you have a compostable program, it's much better for the planet than plastic cups and plastic knives and plastic spoons and everything else that's plastic. So I think understanding that you're going to be brought this way, kicking and screaming one way or another, because this is what your consumer is going to demand. Because if you sit down and talk to somebody, I have nieces and nephews. So if you talk to my 17-year-old nephew, what's styrofoam? Who's even heard of styrofoam? Understanding that, no, in fact, that's not good for the planet. This is what you have to do. They're seeing this in their schools. They're growing up with this. I just, again, don't have that crystal ball, but I think it's something that you've got to be constantly changing every single day. And there's a saying, what you make plans and God laughs at them, right? So you could have every strategic plan in the world. But I think if nothing, the pandemic taught us in food service, at least, pivot. Today is this, we're going to pivot here. We're going to deliver food here. We're not going to, it's a 10-day quarantine. It's a this quarantine. These are the things we're going to have to do. So I think in food service, you can have that plan, but you've got to learn to pivot. And the students drive that pivoting. And there's got to be some realistic expectations. One of the things, we have dining advisory committees. Students come in and meet with me at any single time. They'll stop me out on College Walk, ask questions. If they don't grab me, they grab Chef Mike. And it's listening to what they're saying and figuring out again that compromise. If it's something you can do right away and it's easy and it works for the operation and it works for your staff, just do it. Just do it. That's an easy win. If it's something more complicated, involve them in the process. Let them know, because I think what happens, and I think we all deal with this. Oh, I just threw a dinner party in my house for 20 people. Dining is easy. I think we make it look easy. When you look at our operations serve 12,000 meals a day. We just make it look easy. Our staff makes it look easy. So I think that when people see that, they think, oh, it's so easy. You can just do X, and not understand that there's a process into getting there. Does that answer your question?
I think it's your point of view, and I do think it's interesting, especially since you don't have the crystal ball.
No, I have the crazy 8-ball in my office, but not the crystal ball.
Could be likely. Who knows?
There you go. Could be likely.
Smitha, what is your crystal ball telling you?
Yes, I think a lot about futures, right? It's not going to be one future. It's truly going to be multiple futures. So what is the futures and what am I looking for our campus? The first question I ask is, there is a generational dynamic shift that's happening as we speak. As Gen Alpha enters higher education space, what are their preferences? What are they going to walk into, and what would their preferences be? This is the first generation who has completely been parented by millennials or parented by the tech generation, right? They, for them, a lot of what is the norm now is the norm that they grew up with. And how might we embrace that and prepare ourselves, our teams, and our facilities to meet that? It has been one part that we're trying to follow, process, and begin those 1-degree shifts. The second piece is what I think of as an enterprise resource technology platform when we think about kitchens and, right, our programs. Right now, we have individual tools to meet a certain function for a program that is quite comprehensive, right? If we look at it, any one of us are operating at the scale of a very large food service industry-based, mid to large scale. It's not a small scale business. It's mid to large. When you put our industry, not like, I'm not comparing to a tech industry or others. So if you're putting that lens on, I think a lot about how might an integrated enterprise resource technology platform look like, where your inventory management system is talking and engaging with your menu management system, is talking, engaging with your temp logs and facilities, right? Your safety mechanisms. And then that is translating and cross-pollinating information to your finance platform, budget platform, food waste, and then making it circular on the back end. So the data that is generated is informing operators every step of the way to have predictive analytics and right, and make information decisions. And then the same data we are able to share with our students too. Mm-hmm. So it's inward, and then sharing that to jointly make decisions or make shifts on our campus. So that's the second piece. And the third one I will say is the pace at which menus need to diversify, and our own investment in our training and platforms and that expertise to be available, right? Jollof rice is an example I shared. But the moment you go, gone are the days where if we said Mediterranean cuisine, that it would be enough, right? It has to have depth and gravitas and authenticity at a regional level, no longer at a national level. It's because of the populations, it's because of the demographics that we engage with, right? I don't think it's going to be sufficient if we spoke about a given recipe and that requires certain level of understanding of the cuisine and certain level of technical skills on the front end and back end, right? So these are the three things that I have been thinking about. And when someone asks me about futures.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I like the idea of futures. There's multiple avenues that might present itself, and you can't have one vision. You have to be adaptive and thinking about a lot of different things. For some of our poll results for the last question was what would be most helpful in advancing sustainability in university food service? And we've got a four-way tie with more funding and resources, stronger leadership buy-in and institutional commitment, followed by better access to sustainable suppliers and vendors, and increased student and campus sustainability or community support. That is some of the information we learned from there. The last one is clear regulations and sustainability guidelines. So we are having a few questions that come in. So I think we should move to Q&A. And I want to start, and I'll actually highlight because she was on our first Action Impact discussion, is Miss Anna Hammond from Matriarch Foods. So I'll call you out for folks on this call that are looking for maybe some actions that they can do in their kitchens. That is something you might want to take a look at. But when you're thinking about, and this question's probably for both of you, but when you're talking about your sustainability requirements and what you want your food service program to look like, how do you get that message to your operators where you're ensuring they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do with those ingredients? Those ingredients are important components. They could use the example of the chickpeas. So how do you help your operators, your teams, make sure that those ingredients are handled in the ways that meet your expectations?
I think it's partnering with your supplier. That's really important. At least once a year, we take our culinary team and our heads of the family, as we call them, to a workshop we use Cisco, and Cisco comes out with local, sustainable. 53% of our purchases are local, and that is through Cisco and our bread vendor and our milk vendor. So it's going there and saying, these are what my expectations are, provider. What can you do for us? The breadth of information or the wealth of information that they have a sustainable chef who comes out of Texas, and he will come and sit with you and go through, this comes from this farm and it's a woman-owned business and you all have to try it. And then they do culinary demonstrations. This is how it has to be handled. This is how all of these things need to happen. And understand, in a self-op world, there are two ways you manage your budget, seems to be. One is you submit your budget in, profit or loss, and somebody approves your budget, or you're what you're called self-funded. Columbia happens to be self-funded. So I look for opportunities to use vendors and support that are not any additional cost to the operation to help us train our staff in this. They will come to the unit because, and Christy knows where I come from. So I have to tell you, my staff here is open and receptive to whatever we want to do. There has never been a chef that has turned around in the past 10, 12 years that we've been here to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't think that's right. Having a culinarian like Mike DiMartino, who you sit down and you strategize with and works with the vendors and says, yeah, this is going to work. Let's figure out how this is going to work before we introduce it to the team. I don't live in perfection land, but I will tell you that when I've hired my team, it's attitude before aptitude. I can teach you how to do this. But if they don't walk into the right receptive attitude, it's really not going to work for us. Yeah. I think those are all the tools you can use to make sure. And then we bring the Culinary Institute in once a year to do a training, not only for our management staff, but for our hourly staff. So we've been doing that with them for about 10 years. Always a focus on sustainability, because what's new, what's exciting, what's different. If they don't know, nobody else does.
That's fair. Smitha, from your standpoint, what's happening at Harvard with that?
Multiple prongs, right? One is inspiring and motivating and bringing technical skill set to our culinary management team, as well as managers who are leading, some of our general managers, even though they are not directly preparing the meals, they're overseeing a program and how we talk about it and engage with our community. So we engage both on the sea and land. We partner with, actually, they go to the boats and meet our fishermen. We have a local seafood program where twice a week we only write the that it is the recipe is menued, but the type of fish in it is not mentioned because we do not know what would be harvested from the sea. It's with Red's Best, and it's a beautiful program, right? There is some guarantees for the fishermen, and it's a socio-economic support that we are able to bring. Similarly, in terms of grains, produce, beans, we are looking at biodiversity that then leads to a diverse program. For example, sorghum, right? How do we source sorghum? Not as a specialty ingredient, but as a staple grain at high volume, right? That doesn't cost us a lot. So those are the type of questions our team is following through on. I have a team that looks at it. But then once we are able to source it, Martin and team lead several culinary, like recipe R&D sessions. We are about 6 to 8 months ahead in our R&D as we think. So for our menu for next year, some of them are already in R&D, some of them are in test phase, some of them are in pilot phase, some of them are ready to be scaled. So, right, it all doesn't happen at one time. They break it into bits and bytes. So there's that part of it. And the final part is shaping markets. If something is not available and it's the right approach to take, it's the right ingredient to follow through, whether it's millet or sorghum or diversity in legumes. We talk a lot about legumes, but my experience has been we tend to hone in on 2 to 3 beans and call it a day. And I challenge our suppliers, right? US is a large producer of a wide variety of beans and legumes, right? And yet we hone in on 2 or 3 at best. I do believe that we have a role to play to shape markets, raise the demand, and then, of course, be a volume procurer of those diverse legumes or any ingredient for that matter. It could be anything that falls within healthy diets from sustainable food systems. So these are the 3 things I would share.
Like that. I want to, there's so many great nuggets that both of you are dropping in here that I want to pause and talk about them for a second. So many, through the polls and information that we've had, people are struggling with the finance side. They're struggling with student engagement. They're struggling with buy-in from their community, as well as the campus community and food service community, and sourcing local. And in the last couple of questions, both of you, there's been a few themes. And I think throughout this, there's been that human connection of training, technical skills that can't be ignored. And that's incredibly important because without that awareness, both of you talked about visiting the boats, visiting the farms, going to Cisco, which again, free opportunity for training, free opportunity to communicate what the campus wants or what's new, what's innovative, and thinking about shaping those markets. And I think that 2 points that I think were interested in that too is fake meat. It's not the replacement meat. So that's how you can think about your costs. And that's very true. And I really liked that one other part too, Smitha, that you said about follow those voices, whether they're your employees, the students, follow those voices. I think without those components, it's critical to any food service, no matter what you're trying to work on, whether it's sustainability or any of that. Those are just good operating practices, I would say. But those stand out to me, and I just wanted to call those out. I don't know if either of you want to comment on that.
I'd add one more aspect. You asked about the futures. Another aspect when we think about this whole food service industry is emerging aspects of machine learning and translation into kitchens for consistency, cost, right? Across the board, if there is a production volume, how can machine learning algorithms help with what we are trying to do? We are at the beginning stages of exploring AI ML. Again, from a cost, consistency, and training aspect, all of these are being reviewed. I didn't come up, so I thought I should make a comment about that.
Fair. Yeah.
It's funny you say that because being a self-op, there's no huge recipe file that our folks can go into. And some of our younger chefs are using AI and they go in and say, here's what I want the recipe to look like. Here's how many people I'm feeding. Here's what I needed to do. Here are the steps to get there. And it develops a recipe. Now, we all know AI hallucinates. So we need to make sure we go in and correct it. We're looking at it also for scheduling because when people schedule, they think about people rather than position. Oh, Mary can't work that time. She's got to take care of X, Y, and Z. And that's been very effective also to see what kind of efficiencies can we get out of AI because the chefs sit there and they write the recipe and they do everything else. Where if they could tell the computer of the recipe they'd like to do, tell them the ingredients, let it come up with something, and then test it, adjust, test, and adjust, it's going to save them time in the long run. Not only that, but it scales really well.
Yeah, that's true. And that's a great action too, is testing and learning that. I love that. I love the scheduling thing too, because I hadn't thought about that. That's amazing. We have another question too. So I mentioned on the last Action Impact Forum, we talked about upcycled foods. So the question is, how do you see the opportunity of saving aesthetically imperfect produce, but perfectly tasting? How do you see that produce getting back into the food chain?
I would love to see it in the food chain because when you're chopping up tomatoes for a pico, who cares what the tomato looked like when you first got it?
Yeah.
I'm a gardener. I love to grow my own tomatoes. I make sauce out of them. I'm half Italian, and that's just what we were taught to do. And I think it's just, again, something people need to get used to.
Yeah.
Because you go in the supermarket and perfect tomatoes, and you go to the farmer's market, imperfect tomatoes. I'd rather see the imperfect than the perfect.
Yeah.
It's just getting the houses to go along with it because they're so programmed into a 5x6 tomato. That's what you get. That's how you order it. So I think it's getting the produce people to go along with it. But you look at that and say the local farmers, and I'm from Long Island. So if I'm out in the Hamptons using the old potato farms to grow vegetables, do I want to sell that to a produce house or do I want to do a farm stand where I can get top dollar? So I think that's also culturally part of it.
Yeah. Smitha, anything to add on that from your side?
This is an area where we have influence, I would say, right? And by influence, what I would say is, and we work with a local produce company called Costa, and Costa engages with several farms around the New England region. But one of the things we tell them is anything that is gleaned, let's say potatoes or ingredients from local farms, if you're able to process them, we are able to incorporate into our program, right? And the gleaning could be for many things. I'll give potatoes as an example, but it could be squash, it could be pumpkin, it could be many other local produce. So that's one part. The second part is engaging with the processors, right? In the case of tomatoes, right? Can the gleaned product go to a processor and can we engage with the processor directly to make a volume purchase, right? Those are all unique and we have an ability to engage. In our case, we have several of those, but there are one every it's situational, right? Another example I can give is we engage with small women business holders from Maine who grow heirloom Maine blueberries, right? So that's the only blueberry that we serve during breakfast. It's brought in wholesale, it's frozen, and we serve it with yogurt. And it's the best you have to come here to taste one of the best blueberry cobbler, and Vicky's going to taste it when she's going to be on our campus. The idea is the focus on the produce, or is the focus on how we're going to be utilizing it? I think we have the ability to utilize it. Therefore, we could be innovative in our approach to market and suppliers and partners and engaging with them. That's how I see it. And we do a lot of that.
Y'all have shared so much. I just want to see if I can get maybe one answer. And what I mean by that is one word answer for what's the most important or one thing that everyone could do. And one word's hard, maybe a couple, but just one answer to that. What would it be? One word.
You have to talk to your students.
Talk to your students. How about you, Smitha?
Experimentations.
Yes.
Pilot, iterate before you scale.
Perfect. We'll end on that. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Smitha. Thank you, Vicki, for sharing your stories with us. We learned a lot today. We've recapped in some of this already, but utilize your free resources. Talk to everyone. Talk to your students. Innovate, as was said. And just really think about this because it's accessible. There are many things that everyone can be doing. So thank you for that. And I will send out this recording to everyone, but you have the direct links to contact Smitha or Vicki, and please connect if you have questions. On behalf of me and the 4XI team, thank you again, Smitha and Vicki, but thank you everyone for attending. You'll have a great day. Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye.